welcome back to the class, everyone. Omicrons are one of the most expensive materials in game, and it's a really big bummer when you go to apply one for a character in GAC just to find out in a couple of months where you're now currently at, they don't hold a lot of utility. So what I want to cover in today's video are 10 GAC Omicrons that you can apply today that will not only be helpful now, but will also be helpful for where you're going. So really what this video endeavors to do is not to just say, hey, these are the 10 best Omicrons, go get them. But it is endeavoring to find the happy medium between characters and teams that are actually accessible and Omicrons that are still used at the very end of GAC all the way up in Kyber 1. First off, has to be Qui-Gon Jinn himself. Again, not necessarily a top 10 Omicron in game, but when it comes to accessibility, he is so accessible. Not only is he not a Kyrotech character, but he is found on a store, meaning that you don't have to go through the whole slog of a hard node, waiting several months, even when the character is accelerated, to fully unlock him. You can just go through the store and get him up in a number of weeks if you really dedicate the currency that way. Not only that, but the most important member of his team, Jedi Anakin, is also pretty accessible early game. I believe he's almost given to you, at least up until a certain point, where what's going to happen is really all you need is for Qui-Gon Jinn himself to die, whether on offense or defense. Anakin will get a ton of offense from the entirety of his kit, how it's built, and hopefully just blow everyone up. Again, whether using the squad on offense to take something out, or on defense to at least get one hold, because after Qui-Gon Jinn is dead, the Omicron will no longer have effect in the following battle. You can make this team better as time goes on by adding characters like Cam and Keller and Beck, but you don't have to do that immediately. The team, quite frankly, functions with a bunch of junk GR Jedi in there. For an example of Kyber 1, the main place that I find myself using them is in 3v3 versus the double Rex 5s team, and occasionally in 5v5 as a Hail Mary against something like Great Mothers if I had to burn my counter on another team. Next up is actually going to be a double one, which is Traya and Savage, and this is probably not a surprise to anyone. Again, as far as overall accessibility, these characters knock it out of the park. They came out prior to Kyrotechs being added before Gear 13, so Savage can also be found in a store very similar to Qui-Gon Jinn, also making him even cheaper. Really, the most expensive part about these two characters is the Omicron itself, so that does become something you will have to go through, but at the same time, ever since Traya was added to the guild store for raid currency, she's also become a lot more accessible, because you don't just have to be doing the heroic Sith raid, you can really be doing any raid that offers this tier 1 raid currency to be able to unlock her. So overall, very accessible, still very good. In the end game, they're challenging a lot of the strongest teams out there, like Inquisitorius and Queen Amidala, which is kind of a big deal. Next up is going to be Krex. Now, Krex's Omicron, it does two things, more or less. If we look at it, it says Rex himself gains 30% critical damage, 60% health, which is good, and 25 speed. Then he also gets a myriad of bonuses for either 5v5 with Phoenix or 3v3 with clones. But one of the things that's a really big deal about this for Phoenix in the beginning of the game is, when we look at Hera's kit, her leadership says that her allies are going to share their uniques with each other. So those really nice stats that we just looked at with health and speed and whatnot that Krex is giving himself, Hera's leadership is going to allow that to apply to the entire team. So not only is he getting those stats, but so is the rest of the team. And in the end game, Phoenix actually does still have a place, particularly against Inquisitors if they are found on defense, because of how the Omicron itself works with debuffs and gaining turn meter. But even once you go completely beyond that, and you're not even seeing Inquisitorius on defense anymore, Krex is a really good fifth with Leia Organa, the Galactic Legend, and just the 60% health alone, stacked with the other bonus she gives, can make him really annoying, and the Omicron itself doesn't really lose value as time goes on. Next up is going to be Merrin and Asajj Ventress. Both of them have value when you first get them, whether that be in the early or mid game, and they also retain value in the end game, but the script is going to flip a little bit. And by that I mean, in the beginning, Asajj's is going to be more important, and towards the end of the game, Merrin's is going to become more important. The reason why Merrin's is more important in the end game is because when we look at her Omicron, it is going to allow her to gain 100% turn meter whenever a Nightsister ally is defeated or revived. You can really exploit this interaction, particularly in 3v3 Grand Arena against Jabba the Hutt, a very common defensive team. By allowing Mother Talzin and Asajj to both die, you can auto basic and completely loop the other team until you kill Jabba. It does take some time, it takes some very specific modding, it takes some practice, but over, I think it was 2 3v3 seasons ago, I went 8 for 8 with this counter. So again, you can apply it now if you're just wanting to stack more stacks of Plague, which it does at pretty much any level against any team. That's fantastic, that's good. But at the end game, it still retains value because of that first line that is in there. Now, Asajj is a little bit of the contrast, where in the end game, with that specific Jabba counter that I was calling out, one of the really nice things that she adds to the whole team is 30% tenacity along with the max health and potency. The reason why that 30% tenacity is so helpful is because when I referenced Merrin's modding previously against Jabba, the thing that she needs to actually win that battle is Merrin needs enough tenacity to resist every single thermal that can come from Boosh. And if they have Boosh modded for potency, there's only so much tenacity modding you can do for Merrin, and that really comes to help it out. Now, if you're at the very beginning or mid-game and you're not seeing Jabba on defense at all or running this counter, a lot of the other things that are happening in this Omicron are just absolutely fantastic. The biggest one is when it talks about her Endless Wrath, which is her AoE. Whenever she uses it, she is going to inflict healing immunity on all enemies for 2 turns and reduce their defense and max health by 4%. Healing immunity and Plague is a really nasty combo because Plague cannot be cleansed. The only way to get rid of it is to reach full health. Healing immunity prevents you from reaching full health. And when you have Plague, you can't cleanse. So you get this really vicious cycle where as long as the healing immunity is applied for those 2 turns, it can't be cleansed because of the Plague, and the Plague can't be gotten rid of because you can't be healed. And again, as long as you can continuously apply this, a lot of teams just completely melt. And I was even a little surprised. I went to go look at the win rates and Carbonite as well as Bronzium for the Asajj Omicron being applied and not applied. Overall, universally, it looks like it changes counters by 20%, which is a huge deal. So even if something works with Nightsister before, adding the Omicron can boost it, and again, it's going to retain that value in its longevity. Next up is going to be Tusken Raider. A little bit more limited to a 3v3 Omicron situation because it literally can only be used there. But gosh, this thing is a huge pain in the butt. Even again, where I am at the very end of GAC, I think the cheapest counter is either a Solo Lord Vader or General Skywalker, which in 3v3, those are both fairly expensive and considered, again, also very endgame teams. Now, while you might not have the Kyrotech stash or the hard nodes available to get the Tusken Chieftain as well as Warrior, you can just kind of stick them with the other 2 Tuskens that you have, and while that's not great, maybe it's not even good, it's at least some value you can be getting at, again, the beginning and mid-game before you were able to move up into those other 2 Tusken characters to eventually upgrade the team in 5v5, or sorry, 3v3. Next up is going to be Starkiller. I wanted to stray away a little bit from legendaries overall in this video, but I believe his Lightspeed bundle has now come out twice. All the characters that are required for him are accelerated, and the more expensive some of these newer legendaries, like Mace Windu, are becoming, needing 6 characters, his requirements of only 4 characters keep looking cheaper and cheaper. But at any rate, his Omicron's fantastic. I don't think I have to explain this. If you have Starkiller and you don't have this Omicron on the unique, I don't really know what you're doing, because the amount of things that it unlocks as far as overall speed and damage reduction and assisting, it's what ties the whole team together, and it allows him to beat, not all, but most raid comps that you will face. And even towards the end of the game, I mean, I use him every single GAC, either in a Seer Malicos team in 3v3 where the Omicron still retains and is functional, or even in 5v5 under Emperor Palpatine to beat a gas comp that has Krex in it, because that dazes my Chewbacca, and now my CLS can't win anymore. Next up is going to be Iden. Iden is going to be a little bit more similar to Tusken Raider and Qui-Gon Jinn, where in the end game, I'm really only finding value in her in 3v3 when my opponent places CLS. That, for whatever reason, keeps on happening over and over and over again. So I end up using Iden pretty much every single time. But again, her team, as far as beginning game goes, she herself is not super accessible, but as I was saying, her team really is. Collecting all those Imperial troopers, as long as they don't have leaderships or droid, is not all that hard, and she can be used to carry a lot of the weight because she starts with 100% turn meter and just does a lot of fantastic things with the Omicron, including having large amounts of recovery on top of the fact that she's already stacking max health and protection for a lot of those attacking out of turn type teams. Next up is going to be what I'll just say, it's a hot take. The Zaalbar Omicron has not been out that long. It's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, it's going to be great where I'm at. It looks like it's good. It's not the best Omicron by any standards, but at the same time, it allows you to take out Malik and Bastila Fallen from Darth Revan, throw them on another team that might need them, and he can pretty much help Darth Revan do whatever he needs to do. With Karth overall, the team doesn't look to be super great in the endgame, as Tuskens seem to have their number, at least defensively. Offensively, it looks like they're able to challenge both General Grievous as well as Zori, which aren't really the hardest teams out there. But at the same time, when it comes to overall accessibility, both him and Mission can be farmed on the same node. They're all pre-Kyber tech. You're going to need the two of them, Karth, Jolee, as well as Juhani, to even get Darth Revan or Jedi Knight Revan. So whether or not you do the Lightspeed bundles or you don't, you're going to have to farm them in some regard. And by throwing on the Omicron, the team is functional. And I do have, again, this is really early to say this, but I do have hopes that just this initial part of the Omicron, forget Karth, forget Darth Revan, this initial part of the Omicron will age well. Because as far as I know, this is the only 100% passive taunt that isn't conditional on something else, where it pretty much says he's going to gain taunt whenever he loses it. A lot of other characters have something very similar to this, like Nightsister with Purge on the enemy team, or Boss with Protection on the enemy team. His is the only one that doesn't seem conditional on anything other than the fact that he, can't have buff immunity or shock or something like that just stops all buffs. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's pretty accessible in the very beginning of the game, and as time goes on, I think it will be good. Lastly, we're going to talk about some honorable mentions. I like these characters. They're a part of teams that you're going to use somewhere in the beginning and mid game, but at the same time, they have recently just kind of fallen off for me. Stop is really only being used right now when there is a General Grievous or a Droid Datacron, which actually is present right now and is doing a lot of work. Wampa was really conditional on a Dot Datacron. Zam is mostly used in Bounty Hunter cleanups. Zori and Adrad, I will say this about them. Zori and Adrad, they actually are still used, or are being used where I'm at, but at the same time, most of what their team is doing and all the weight that is being pulled isn't just by the fact that whenever Zori is stealthed at the start of a turn, all enemies without expose are inflicted with expose. Like the Resistance Hero going first and applying expose, and Resistance Hero Finn going next, and the expose is tracking because Rose is giving tenacity up, and that's helping whoever crits to get more exposes. That's actually doing a lot more for the team than the Omicron really is. The same thing kind of goes for Adrad. Starting off with, what's the buff called? Spark of the Rebellion is very nice, but ultimately, the battle goes on long enough that you're going to have to use Inspire Maneuver to be able to get it again, and I know there's buffs and other things, so again, these aren't bad. I have all of these, but I don't think they quite fit the perfect happy medium we were looking for between accessible and good for overall long play. But they are worth mentioning that if you have gone after any of them, they do mostly retain good value and are mostly good Omicrons at the same time. So that is going to be the video. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.